And welcome to the Elite Tennis Podcast. I am Mike Baugh, and with us tonight, we have the one, the only, the Chuck Gill. How are you doing tonight, Chuck?
Great, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Tennis Podcast. I am Mike Baugh. And sorry, I have my phone still on. So, Chuck, how are you doing tonight?
Hey.
I'm glad you could join us.
It's a rocking Tuesday night in Wellington. Finished a long day at work, and I'm here like you are.
So how's everything going? I mean, we've talked a little bit on the phone here and there. You're in Wellington, you're at IBIS, and
well, I'm probably like most people. I'm navigating the post-COVID-19 or during COVID-19 era of clubs. So everything is pretty murky out there. Some places are open, some places are closed, some places are doing doubles lessons, some places never closed. We are now at our club, we are open, golf, tennis, social spacing on food. The gym is open, the fitness center, the spa, pool is open with chairs spread apart. So you're kind of waiting to see what your members are going to do more than anything else, because, I know in some parts of the state things never stopped, and in our part of the state things came to a screeching halt. And while they closed fast, they're being dialed back slow. A lot of people, I think, are just dipping their toe in the water and seeing what they're comfortable doing. It seems like things outside, like tennis, is great. Thank God. Golf. People can't play enough golf, but as far as going in the gym and going to indoor dining, I think it's going to be a while, and it's going to be a period of time before people start to feel comfortable.
So how have you're starting to open back up now, right?
We started opening up in phases about 4 weeks ago, really. Golf and tennis opened up first outside, and we were always doing takeout food, but we just recently opened up the gym, and we were a little surprised at how few people really wanted to come back there. So we're opening up slowly and in phases. I mean, we're almost 4,000 members, so you can't really be sure who's coming back and when they're going to come back. Another thing that happened down here is we have a lot of snowbirds. So a lot of people they spend their summers up in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. So those are obviously the hardest hit areas. So a lot of them are down here. After Memorial Day, a lot of them leave, but they're all here because their clubs up north aren't opening until middle of June, end of June, sometimes some as late as 4th of July weekend. So a lot of unknowns.
Yeah. So what has been some of the best things to come of the situation so far from your club?
Well, the best thing from our club is that I believe at this point, out of a club of 4,000, we had one, maybe two reported cases. So that's actually a win. That's pretty good. I think overall the big thing that came out of it that's positive is how our staff was able to get really creative and come up with ways to do aerobic classes outside and how to operate. And I think I have to say the members were terrific because they were really patient. I mean, it's like everywhere else in the country. You have certain people that think, oh, this whole thing is blown out of proportion, it's a total hoax. And then you have some people that are petrified to even leave their homes, and then everybody else is somewhere in the middle. So I think the patience and the generosity of our members has been really, really pleasing and good to see. And I would have to say that I work with a really good team of fitness people and spa people and tennis people that have been very, very creative about trying to find ways to connect with members. And, whether it's through social media or through apps and Facebooks and emails, they've done a really good job at staying connected to our members. So I think those are wins. Those are good things, positives.
So one thing that's kind of happened in your area, and I messaged you about this the other day, was the UTR has in your neck of the woods has done the reopened and you actually got mentioned during the telecast.
Yeah. So what if I'm from Naples? You didn't know that. I had a lot of friends from Naples asking me why haven't I invited them to play golf if I lived in Naples, but that was a little bit of a miss. But yeah, we got contacted about that about a month ago on the men's side, and they were trying to put together, Stephen Armitage at UTR. We're trying to put together some type of pro event, and obviously you can't have fans and you have to do social distancing. So there are a lot of things different. So they were looking for a private court, and fortunately, Jay Berger, who, as you know, is our director of instruction, he works with Riley Opelka, and Riley and Tommy Paul had been self-quarantined, so they had been playing at this individual's house. So it was not on the grounds of IBIS, the way they kept reporting in the media, but it was at a private home about several miles from IBIS. So yeah, they put together the reopen tour with UTR, and I thought it was terrific. The player field was good, and then they did one this weekend, this past weekend with the women. So it got a lot of press, and it was nice. We were able to help them just because we were the closest club, the closest facility as far as geographically near them. So we were able to help them with some boots on the ground and getting umpire chairs and benches and stuff. So happy to help them. Stephen Armitage is a terrific guy. So we're really happy to help him, and really good to see pro sports live again. You know, something to watch.
Now that was the first pro sport event back, correct?
That was the first one in North America that I know of. They did do a similar event over in Germany, I think, but this was the first one with 4 top 100 players and I guess top 60 players in the men and the women. So this was the first live sporting event. So great to be
look at tennis. Look at tennis leading the way there. I know
who's
hockey.
waving?
Well, tennis is just leading the way again.
Oh,
I mean, I know hockey just announced today that they're going to try to do a 24-team playoff for the Stanley Cup playoff.
It's tough. It's really, really difficult. It's like, what was it? There was a quote once: "He was a brave man that ate the first oyster." And I think a lot of people, it's going to be tough for a sporting event to come back, and for anyone to, take that first walk into a crowded stadium and rub shoulders with people. And I'm not sure it'll come back for a while, but somebody's going to have to lead the way and be brave. And, even if it's just getting the athletes together and getting the athletes to feel safe, but it's going to be an interesting path that we're going to go down.
Well, talking about getting athletes together, it was reported that the Tampa Bay Rays got 14 of their players and their manager practiced together yesterday, which almost equals how many people they normally have together for a game. So, who knows what's going to happen there.
The Marlins, I'm not sure. Who?
Well, it's funny because I think it was like 2 years ago, the Rays played the Marlins in Miami, and there was a fireworks game here in Clearwater for the Threshers, which is an advanced single A team. And they outdrew the Marlins and the Rays for the fireworks game the same night. It was
it's tough. Baseball is tough in South Florida and over in the Tampa area too. You've got so many people that they like to recreate and they love sports, but it's a tough draw. It's too bad, really, because the Marlins have had some great teams and they didn't draw very well. And this new stadium, I got to tell you, is lights out. It's one great facility.
Oh, absolutely.
And, now with the Bright Line, with the high-speed train connecting West Palm and Fort Lauderdale to downtown Miami, you can get to the game very quickly, and they have a shuttle. So I'm hoping that once baseball comes back, that people will support it and support the Marlins and the Rays.
Now, I've been to a couple of the games there. I was at the first regular season game there at Miami. They played. I'm a Cardinals fan, and they actually played the Cardinals during opening day 8 years ago, 9 years ago, something like that. I can't remember how long. It's been too long, but I can't believe it's been actually that long that the stadium's been open. But
Yeah, it's a great venue, and it's awful fun. I mean, I have such good memories being a kid. I grew up playing baseball and watching baseball,
yeah,
and my greatest memories as a kid were going down to Atlanta's Fulton County Stadium. This is going to date myself, and watch Hank Aaron and the Braves play, because their AAA team were the Richmond Braves, which is where I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. So good times with baseball for sure.
so you played baseball, but how did you get into tennis when you were younger?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. My dad was a tennis player, like about a 4.0, and he played recreationally in Richmond. So I grew up playing basketball and baseball, and I'd play a little tennis and just hack around with my dad. And then when we left Richmond for my father's job and moved to Morristown, Tennessee, they had a great community tennis association, like a really good, active community of tennis players. So, um, I kind of became a court rat, so I could go down to the public park and or to the high school, and I could find games. Geez, if I didn't care who I played with, and back then I certainly didn't because I wasn't that good, I could play with anybody, and I would play like 6 hours a day in the summer, and I could get to play a couple hours in the afternoon after school and playing high school tennis. So got to play a lot, but yeah, definitely basketball and baseball were my first two loves in my two sports. And then I kind of fell in love with tennis once I got into middle school and high school.
So you played tennis and then you played on, and then how did you get into teaching tennis?
Um, I went to Carson Newman. Now it's Carson Newman University, and it was in Jeff City, Tennessee. So the whole team would go up and teach tennis in the summer. And I was pretty much from the South, so I'd never really been to New England, but all my teammates went up to a company called All American Sports, and we all taught tennis in the summer. So once I started teaching, I was able to work with some really fun people that are still my friends today. I mean, Jiwan Maharaj, who you know from over in the Tampa area, Jiwan was working for All American Sports, and his brother Sace and my college teammate Charles Talbert. We would all go up there in the summer and teach, and then that pretty much became the schedule. We'd go to school in the year, go up, teach in the summer, and when I got out of school, I was going to get my MBA. My father wanted me to go to the University of Tennessee and work on my MBA, and I had a chance to teach tennis in Puerto Rico. So let me see. I can continue school, which I wasn't that academically inclined, and try to get an MBA, or I could go live on an island, having never really left the continental U.S., and teach tennis. It seemed like a no-brainer. So
I
off
know,
to
right?
Puerto Rico I went, teaching tennis, and that led me on the path that I took. So
There you go.
who would have thought?
So off to Puerto Rico, and then where did the
Off to
journey take you from
off to
there?
Puerto Rico. I spent basically 2 years in Puerto Rico, where I'd go up and work summer camps, and then I wound up at Top Notch at Stowe in Stowe, Vermont, which I actually followed G1, because G1 was the tennis director there at Top Notch. So I left Puerto Rico and wound up spending a summer in the Hamptons, and then I wound up being offered the job at a pretty young age. I think I might have been 23 at the time, as the tennis director during the winter. Because I got it by default, frankly, because nobody wanted to spend a winter in Stowe, Vermont, that loved tennis, because we had the 4 indoor courts, but
Yeah.
that's all you saw. As a matter of fact, when I took the job, I'm walking around with the facilities guy, and he's showing me the indoor courts, and he's showing me the lights, and he's showing me how to turn on the machine to clean the courts, and he hands me a shovel the size of which I'd never seen in my life. He goes, "Yeah, we plow all the way to the driveway, but then you're going to have to tunnel to the tennis courts." And I went, "What do you mean tunnel to the tennis courts?" So I learned that a snow shovel became a part of my arsenal. I started my first job with a couple of Prince rackets and a snow shovel. So I'd shovel down about 40 yards of the sidewalk, because we were sunk down into a valley. So every time the snow would come, and it would drift in, and sometimes I'd have like 4 feet of snow that I'd have to shovel and tunnel away for myself and the members to get to the indoor center so I could actually give my first lesson. So I'd be there at 7 a.m. shoveling snow. Yeah, that career move didn't seem real good right then, but it was a good spot, and I was happy to be there.
That's good. So after you got done shoveling snow, where did you go from there?
Well, I I actually stayed in Stowe for about 7 years, and I was one of the few people year round that actually liked it because it was a small town, and even though it was New England, it was a little bit like the South in that it was small town and everybody was friendly and people were very engaging, and the town totally embraced me, and I had a great time there. So after spending 7 years there, I vividly remember I started coaching the high school teams there, and I really got kind of connected to the community. And I played tennis at the Stowe Tennis Club. That was my little place to hang at the end of the day, which, I thought that was kind of cool that I was in my 20s and I actually joined a tennis club. They let me join so I could, so I paid dues and I'd show up and play men's night and have fun with my buddies. One of my best friends, Mike Tazzi, is still up there now, and he's at the Stowe Tennis Club. But it was just a great place to be. So after Stowe, I was coaching high school. It was one of the last years I was there. But the season is in the spring, right? So when you're coaching high school tennis, you think coaching high school tennis in Florida, it's hot. I can tell you there's nothing like coaching a high school tennis match when number 3 doubles is on and it's about 6:30 and it's the middle of May and it starts to snow. and you're standing there like you think you've worn enough clothes. You've got a warm up bottom, you've got long johns, I've got a sweater, I've got a shirt, I've got like a ski parka on and mittens, and I'm standing there like shaking and freezing. So that was the moment that said, you know what, all my friends that are in Florida, I think they've got it right. So that's when I went to Florida, and I spent a few months at the Grand Cypress working again for the management company, and then I wound up at the Boca Resort as the tennis director there. So I kind of moved down to Florida, and I haven't really left. I love Florida. I think it's just great here. I probably will never leave.
Well, I kind of agree with you there. I grew up in Indiana. I spent the first 28 years of my life in Southern Indiana, and
Yeah,
moved
nice
in
winters.
yeah,
Nice
moved in
winter.
2011, and haven't not moving back.
Yeah,
No,
right, right. I
no.
mean, I don't know. Everybody says, "Don't you miss the change of seasons?" And I said, "I don't know. Quite frankly, 2 of them sucked. I didn't really like 2 of them." So,
What really sucks when you get all 4 in the same day.
yeah. There you go. There you go.
So you were at Grand Cypress,
Yeah.
and then you went to the Boca Resort.
Went to the Boca Resort. Stayed at the Boca Resort as the tennis director for about 7 years, and then IBIS came along, and it was a small community at the time, but it had a great master plan. And actually, the developer at the time was a gentleman named Tom Dillon and Stan Gale, and they had a partnership. They had just bought the property from Ecclestone, and it was a good combination because I got there at a time where they had already built the 2 golf courses and they really wanted to pump up tennis and make an investment. And then one of my really, who wound up being a terrific friend, and I've known the family for years, Sid Kitson, who's a big player in real estate in Florida and all over. He's just a terrific guy with a wonderful family. Sid kind of gave me the opportunity to see what I could do to grow tennis at IBIS, and I'd like to think the timing was good because I certainly feel like we did it, and it was great.
So you guys have just absolutely kind of exploded and really made IBIS kind of like a go-to place. Like, you kind of made it like an icon there.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, we've done a really good job, and I have to give the credit where it's due. I've had some terrific pros with me that really are, they care, they deeply care, and they work very hard to make it great. But it's been that way kind of from the start. I mean, Conrad Cowan was one of the earlier pros there at IBIS that worked with me, and boy, I learned so much from Conrad, and he's just a terrific person, and he was great. He was with me in Boca, so Conrad joining me at IBIS was great. Jill Sheehan's been with me forever. It
Well,
seems like.
real quick, let's congratulate Conrad if Conrad's watching.
Big shout out to Conrad, who's heading up to Augusta, Georgia.
Conrad just got a job in Augusta, so congratulations to Conrad and his family. They're going to be moving up there. So
yeah, they're going to do terrific. Conrad does a wonderful job everywhere he's ever been. He's a wonderful guy.
I'm a big fan of Conrad. And then who you were saying?
Well, now Jay Berger is our director of instruction.
Jay's great. I met Jay when I went to Boca for the high performance program back like 6 years ago or so. He was great there.
Yeah, I think Jay is one of the best coaches in the world. I mean, and I'd like to say that me running into Jay and having him come join us at IBIS was something other than dumb luck, but a lot of times it was just luck. I happened to be at the Miami Open, and Jay and I were talking about the office in Lake Nona and how I'd been spending a lot of time up there as USPTA president trying to get the headquarters built for USPTA. And Jay and I talked, and Jay was, kind of tired of traveling, and his son Daniel had just started, really taking off on the PGA Tour. And Jay let me know that I'm probably not going to go to Lake Nona. I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to coach. And really the conversation didn't go much unlike this. Well, what are you going to do? I don't know. Do you want some courts? Do you want to run an academy? I don't know. Well, why don't you come to IBIS, and why don't you come work with us at IBIS if you want to do something? And it was like, oh yeah, I've played at IBIS. I like IBIS. I like you. Maybe we could do something. And within 2 weeks, I had lunch twice with our board president and our general manager, and we modeled it after what we do with golf with Martin Hall, who's our director of golf instruction. So, boy, Jay has just really, really added so much.
Because at the time,
great time.
Well, at the time, Jay Berger was coaching Jack Sock.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's kind of the cool story, that he was coaching Jack Sock, and Jack won. I think he won.
He won the Paris Masters.
He won one of the last tournaments of the year, qualified for the Masters, and we were supposed to have this big welcome to IBIS, get to know Jay Berger clinic, and Jay said, I said, Jay, are you sure this is going to work? Were this date's great? He goes, yeah. The only way it wouldn't work is if Riley makes the Masters. I said, well, what would he have to do to make the Masters? And he said, well, he'd have to, I think it was Paris. I'm trying to think of the tournament. He said, well, he'd have to win the last tournament of the year, and 6 guys ranked above him have to lose in the quarters or sooner. And so he goes, no, trust me, I'll be at the clinic. So, of course, the way it worked out, he didn't make the clinic, and my entry line to the clinic that we had was, I know you were expecting the Meet Jay Berger clinic. Unfortunately, this has to be the Get to Know Chuck Gill a Little Bit Better clinic. So anyway, finally we got Jay here, and everything worked out great.
No, it was great because Jack Sock won the Paris Masters and qualified for the ATP finals.
Yep. And then won rounds there, made the semis.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played terrific. He was playing some great tennis back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now Jay, of course, is coaching Riley, and he's had a lot of success with Riley. Riley has had a lot of success, and it's good. It's good to have Riley at the club playing from time to time, and whenever he can, and whenever his schedule allows it. We have a hard court now, and he's on the clay now, but it's great to have Riley around, not just because he's a terrific player, which he is, but if you get to know Riley a little bit, he's a very humble, nice young man. And our members, they'll all walk by and they'll all talk to him, and Riley will chat him up. It's he's kind of and we've made him an honorary member at the club now, so he's a good fit. We're lucky to have him around.
Well, I remember 6 years ago, Riley, it was before he won Junior Wimbledon, and running into him at player development.
Yeah.
And great attitude and laid back and just kind of kicking it. And then during the ITPA conference in Atlanta, he'd come in and a couple years later, he'd chat us up and come in for an interview with Mark Kovacs and us. And just, he's always looking to improve the game and help coaches out and do whatever he can to improve tennis. He's a great asset to tennis.
He's one of the, you know, there's so many good young American players that are all on that cusp there, you know, between Tommy Paul and Taylor and Francis. They're going to be terrific players, and I think they're going to be, you know, world-class players for a while, and they're going to have great careers. It's just which one of them will make that next step to be the player that's, you know, in the second week of majors. And, you know, right now I think it looks as though any of those four could do it. And Francis, of course, made the semis of the Australian, I think. But Riley certainly got the weapons to go deep. And I don't think anybody really wants to play Riley. To say he's disruptive on the court would be an understatement with that serve.
So talking about tennis and matches, you've seen a lot of tennis matches.
Right.
You've been caught on camera quite a few times watching tennis matches.
Yeah, I have friends with good seats.
You've got friends with good seats. Not only that, you've got friends that know where you're sitting, and you've got friends all over social media that's like, where's Chuck? Like a where's Waldo on social media during the U.S. Open, Miami Open, whatever else.
Is way overrated. It's not as great as they say.
But there was a question pre-show, and it was, what's better live, the best tennis match you've ever saw or the best concert you ever saw? John Cornell wants to know.
I saw that. And I was thinking, geez, if I answer it with a rock show and I'm a tennis guy, I think that would be a really bad answer. But I will say I love live music. I think most people know that I love to go to my share of shows. But I do love great tennis. And I was trying to think, and I would have to say the three best tennis matches I ever saw, and I can't really put my finger on which one is the best, but one would be, and they're all special in a way. One would be this, I've never been to a US Open final live, and watching Medvedev play Nadal this year was pretty cool because, you know, I think it's safe to say that all the people in the New York crowd were rooting for Rafa at the start. Yeah. And when Rafa went up 2-0, they wanted to go on a little longer. So when Medvedev won like the next set, people were really into him. And then the second set, that was pretty exciting. And then about midway through the fifth set, it dawned on a lot of people that, like, oh my God, Rafa could lose this. And then everybody really got behind Rafa, but it was a great match. I remember that because I'd never been to a US Open final. The other one was really special in a different way because I saw Andy Murray beat Verdasco in 5 at Wimbledon on center court. And that was incredibly cool because the British crowd was going nuts. And the funny part about this match is, like, a lot of times when you go to something, it's not so much what you do as who you're with. But I was actually with my family, and my family had gotten really tired of the tennis because it was the end of the day. It was the fifth set. And quite frankly, they were tired and they wanted to tap out. So it worked out fine because as soon as the fifth set started, we left and we taxied out to beat the crowd. And we took the cab and we went back to the place we were staying at, this little flat. And right across the street was this authentic, like, British pub with everybody hanging outside. And so my son, who I guess the statute of limitations had run out on us by now, but we went across the street. My son wanted to have a pint. So I thought, what's a better dad thing to do than take my son Jacob into this British pub and have a pint and watch the fifth set. So I'm watching the match, the fifth set, after watching the first 4, and Jacob is showing these guys that had a little too much to drink at the bar his tickets. And I was just there, and they go, "Kid, why'd you leave the match?" And they go, "Why'd you leave the match?" I go, "Well, you know, I really wanted my son to experience the pub, so I thought I'd leave it instead of Andy Murray so I could come meet fine fellas like you." So that was kind of a cool thing. And then the last tennis match, which was watching Todd Martin come back in one of my first trips to New York not one of my first, but one of my better trips to New York, watching Todd Martin beat Greg Rusetsky in 5.
Oh,
which
that's a
was,
good one.
the match ended well after midnight. And let's just say that New York late at night is everything that they say it is. The crowd's crazy. That was fun. So those were the best tennis matches. And I would have to say that those were really good and probably better. But my best concert live, Bruno Mars, pretty damn good.
Okay.
Bruno Mars is pretty good.
I,
I
I'm
just
I'm
got
gonna.
back. I don't know if Louis Ballantyne's on there now, but we a few of us went in Vegas and we saw Aerosmith, who
Okay.
still rocking and still great. Anytime I can see Buffett or Donald Fagen and Steely Dan or the Eagles, that's always good.
So those were names I was expecting, but when you threw out Bruno Mars first, I was like, I was expecting like the Aerosmith, the Steely Dan, but when
I
you
got to tell
threw
you,
out Bruno Mars first, okay.
I'm a big Bruno fan. Bruno kills it. Bruno still, despite what anybody says, that is the halftime show of the Super Bowl that all others should be measured against. I mean, he killed it that night. So I'm a big Bruno fan. My wife's a big Bruno fan, so that kind of, like Samuel Jackson says, that makes me a Bruno fan.
Well, there you go. Hey, happy wife, happy life, right?
Yep, you got it.
All right. So what is next for Chuck Gill? Like, you've got some stuff upcoming. You are sorry. You're on the board for USTA National. I don't know if you can say anything coming up next year. You're past president for USPTA. Like, you do a lot of giving back to the industry. You've been involved with the industry for a long time, but you also do a lot of giving back. So what is next for Chuck?
Well, I really enjoy it. I enjoy the people I've served with. The USPTA board position came up. I didn't really, wasn't something I set out and said I really want to do. But once that opportunity came up to help serve on the national board, having been involved at Florida, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people. Harry Gilbert's one of my dearest friends, and he was on the board at the time. So when I applied for the board, I was really honored to be selected. I think no matter what board I've been on or what role I've been in, I think one of the skills I've always tried to have is to be able to look at things from a lot of different sides and a lot of different perspectives. Because I've tried to look at things not just through the eyes of a tennis pro, but I've tried to look at things through, if I was an actual tennis player at this club, or if I was an actual dues paying member, what would I like to see? If I was a member at this club, what would I like to see? And I try to let tennis, just overall what's good for the sport, kind of be my moral compass on a lot of things. And that's served me fairly well. And I think it's helped me, maybe contribute and maybe help with guiding the association and helping serve as president. Anytime you're on a board, you're one of 9 people or 8 people. So you're really trying to gain consensus. You're trying to look at things from a lot of different ways, and you're trying to do what's right. At the end of the day, you're trying to do what's right for the sport.
Yeah.
The USTA was just a tremendous honor, because the people that are on the board are brilliant people in their own rights. They are people who are very passionate about tennis, and they come from all different walks of life, and it's really interesting to spend time with them and to discuss tennis with them and share my perspective, being someone who actually, I've made my living in tennis. That's all I've done. There won't be another job for me other than tennis. I'll be teaching it or directing tennis programs and hiring pros and working with coaches and coaching myself, because that's really my passion. So what's next for me? I don't know. I'm really enjoying the time on the USTA board. I really enjoy the people that I work with. I think Patrick Galbraith is a wonderful president. He's, it's tough. The USTA gets a lot of criticism, and a lot of it is unfair. I would say that I've been around long enough where I remember people were criticizing at one point the USTA because they weren't in player development. Now, that's a fact. There was
Yeah.
a time where people were saying all these other countries have player development and they run the coaches associations, and well, how come the USTA isn't doing it? And all of a sudden, the USTA gets in the player development business, and they're trying their best to find the secret sauce to make the great champions and to try to nurture players and get them through the pathway. And then they get criticized now for being in player development. So I think it's a little unfair, but it does come with the turf of being the governing body and having a lot of resources to affect changes. At the end of the day, you just want the sport to grow. I think that's the
Yeah.
single most important thing. Is that look at ourselves. I mean, what would we be doing without tennis? Tennis is such an important part of so many people's lives, and in our case, our livelihood. So if we grow tennis and get more people playing, then a lot of the problems with player development. I mean, I had a conversation with Kathy Rinaldi in the last couple of weeks, and I've had conversation with Jay Berger, and I said, what's the single biggest thing we can do to help get more players? And they said, or to produce better champions. They said, give us a bigger pool of athletes who think tennis is cool and want to play tennis. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
So when we're trying to grow the game,
Right.
what do you think are some things that one thing that I've heard you say is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Okay. What do you?
Yeah, that's an African proverb that I really like, and I use that a lot when I was trying to talk about collaboration between the teaching pros and the governing body and the pro tours, and how everybody needs to be, not necessarily lockstep and agree on everything, but there has to be a sense of collaboration, because that's how things get done.
So I wasn't just tweeting in the audience. I was actually listening to you, Chuck.
No, okay.
But
So I think that the more people work together, and it all starts at the grassroots. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, you know what, I'd like to go play that 4.0 tournament, or you know what, it'd be fun to play the national father-daughter, or before you get there, the pathway has to be entry level. How do you make the sport affordable? How do you make it fun? That's why I think the one thing that could come out of this whole pandemic crisis that's positive is people are not going to go back to gyms right away. People are not going to go back as much as we think to like the CrossFits and the Orange Theories and the LA Fitnesses. They don't want to be inside. So there's going to be a huge demand for outdoor recreation and outdoor activities with your family. And I think, boy, a public park now that can capitalize on that and have a good, we talk a little bit about what the ambassador program is, and that's maybe less teaching pros or having great teaching pros, but along with the great teaching pros, having someone that's like an ambassador, that's like a play facilitator. I think the public parks that get that right, and the schools that get that right, parents are going to want their kids playing a sport that they know is healthy, that's outdoors, that has some social spacing that they can do forever. So, boy, I think there's a huge opportunity now to grow tennis in parks, and anything you have that's entry level for kids. I think it's a great opportunity.
So how do you see us going from the entry level and then getting those kids into more competitions, and then getting them hooked into playing more events and wanting them to compete more?
That's a really good question. And that's something that everybody needs to roll their sleeves up and try to find that pathway, because a lot of people try tennis and then we don't have a problem necessarily with people trying it. Sometimes we have a problem with people trying it, liking it, and then being able to take that next step to actually compete. And that's why I think boy, Laura Bowen, if she hears this, she'll like the shout out. But, you know, when you look at the model of you learn to play tennis, you learn, you play, and then you compete. And sometimes we want to teach our kids, and the first thing we want to do is to show them a tournament and let them go compete. And that's not necessarily the best thing for all kids, because the ones that like to compete will compete and stay in it. And then there are a lot of kids that are probably very happy playing high school tennis and playing the game the rest of their life. And maybe they don't want to, their goal shouldn't be to play a level 3 and to get a state ranking. So, I think, by the way, I think that's true for entry-level adults too. That's why the lifeblood of most good club programs, it's not the elite players, it's that good base of 3.0, 2.5, 3.5 men and women who just love the game and want to play. And why do they play league tennis? Well, it's social. You know when you're going to play, you know when it's going to end, and afterwards, it's like certain areas have the pro leagues that do well, because you know you're going to play 2 sets of doubles, and it's going to be equal play, and then you're going to have a beer afterwards and sit around and talk, and that's what most people want. So that to me, Mike, what you just asked is the big question on participation. How do we get people to try it, to like it, and then how do we get them in a player pathway that they've got options where they can be as engaged or serious as they'd like?
Yeah, I think that one thing I think is, once we get into competition, one thing I found is competition kind of hooks players. It kind of gives them a reason that makes sense for some of the practices.
Yeah.
But one thing that if they go out and play recreationally, that kind of gives them the style. It kind of gives them the fun to go out there and hit and play, and gives them a reason to go out and play too. So, it all works together. But if we just go out and give them a free range to go out and play sometimes too, and give them the freedom, and not everything has to be coached and drilled down their throat too, they need an opportunity to go out and just spread their wings as well. So, and sometimes that doesn't happen, the way that it used to be 20, 30 years ago, where you could just go out to the park and hit balls. That doesn't always happen in today's society.
And I don't think it's necessarily a problem that just exists for tennis. I think youth sports, and there have been things written about this, overall youth sports have gotten way too professionalized, and we've over-programmed kids. A kid now will take 2 lessons and do several clinics, and then they go off for the weekend and play the tournament, where they're, again, they're on the clock and the parents are watching, and they're competing. I think there's something to be said for 2 kids grabbing a can of balls, going to the back, playing a couple of sets, and 2 things happen there. Number one, God forbid you actually learn to play. You're not worried about your UTR ranking, and you're not worried about whether or not you, whether your ranking falls or rises because of the match. You actually learn how to compete and how to play, and most importantly, you begin to learn that this game is fun on its own merit.
Yeah.
And it's okay for the ladies to get together and play a doubles. They can't get the match thing out of their mind. So they'll say, yeah, we're going to play a practice match. I go, why does it have to be a match? Why don't 4 of you go on a court and switch partners and play 3 sets, and then not worry about who won? And guys are just as bad. It's like, we know, I won all 3 times, and Chuck lost or Jeff lost all 3 times, so we need to throw Jeff out of our game. No, you're just playing. It's just one day. You're trying to have some fun playing. Was it fun? Do you feel like you got better? That's, this coming from a guy who never played the tour, right? So I can kind of say that it's more important that you have fun playing.
But that's the thing, is most players never did play the tour. Most players that support tennis never played the tour. Yeah. So are we going to have the players that the 1% of the players, or the 10th of the 1% of the players that played the tour, make all the decisions? Are we going to have the players that are the club players tell us that, or let us get the information from the 3-0, the 3-5, the 4, and the 4-5 players that support us and take the lessons and let us learn from them what they need and what they want.
Yeah, I mean, they're the ones that like the socials, and they like activities that facilitate play. And they're not against playing a league match, but a lot of them don't want to go off and play a tournament at another club or in another town. They're happy just to play. That's why I think UTR is successful, because their motto that they used at the last event was "Play locally, count globally." That's actually a pretty good model, because if you allow people to just compete locally and play with different people, whether it's the same gender or whether it's mixed doubles or whatever, let them. We just need people playing. Growing tennis really isn't that complex. It's getting more people to play and getting the people that play to play more. And if we can knock those two things out and move the needle on those two things, tennis will grow.
Absolutely. Well, Chuck, I appreciate your time tonight. When I talked to you last week,
I stayed awake.
You stayed awake. I don't want to keep you up too long. When I talked to you last week and I was like, hey, can you do an interview? And you're like, well, what time? And I'm like, well, can you do 9 or whatever? And I'm like, man, I got to go to sleep. I'm just giving you our time.
That's all right.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, Mike, thanks a lot for having me. I hope I didn't run off too far, go off on too many tangents there, but
no, it's
on, and thanks for all you do. I mean, you're such a good ambassador for teaching pros, and I know that you're really active, and you've been active as a DP, and you've got your shows, and you're always on social media, and you're one of the good guys, and anything I can do to help, happy to. You're a good man.
Well, thank you, Chuck, and hopefully
you your coverage with Sarah for sure.
Oh, definitely. Actually, I was really hoping that I would be seeing you this week.
I know. First state convention we haven't had in forever.
I know. I would be seeing you tomorrow, right? Because it's Tuesday.
Let's see, it's Wednesday. Yeah, that would be the welcome party. We'd be on that lawn watching the sunset at that nice little bar at the Naples Beach Hotel that we historically meet at, and we all kind of wind up there. So, yeah, I miss it. I really miss not being there, but it made perfect sense to not do it. I think the board did the right thing by, social distancing and, trying to not trying to pull that off. That was going to be too daunting for sure.
Yeah. Well, next time I see you, whether if it's in Wellington or if it's happens to be in New Orleans, whatever, I do a couple of bills.
Is my son Jacob's over in Tampa now, finishing up at USF. So
okay,
next time I'm over there for sure.
Let me know, and I owe you a couple beers for coming on. So let's see it. So, well, thank you, Chuck, again, and hope you stay well, stay healthy, and let's grow the game here. And thank you again.
You too. Bye, Mike.
See you guys. Kendall Hart's coming on Thursday night, and we've got more guests coming on. Amanda Fink's going to be coming on again soon. We're going to try to make the show work a little better than when she was on last time, and watch out for more guests. Guys, this is the Elite Tennis Podcast, and thank you all for listening.